Okay, I have 2 kids having a nap and one who's actually entertaining himself. So I have all of how long it takes until somebody knocks on this door to tell you all about how your brain is holding onto something it doesn't need to. Want to see if I can get it out in time? Let's give it a go. Hi friend, welcome back. You might notice that my hands look a little bit, that's because today I decided to try and be Mum of the Year and make Play-Doh from scratch, which I've never done before in my 8 years of parenthood. So not nailing the Mother of the Year situation yet. However, I decided to use food coloring, and against all advice to wear gloves, I did not. So here we are, grubby mum. It's all good. What I am here to talk about is something that occurred to me last night when I was lying in bed after I'd finished all the day's tasks and I'd finally cleaned the kitchen, and I lay down to relax. And hey ho, lo and behold, I could not, because as soon as my head hit the pillow, I started thinking about the tasks that I hadn't completed for the day. There was an email that I hadn't sent. There was an appointment I needed to book. There was a conversation I was rehearsing, but I hadn't had it yet. There were like a few open loops that kept repeating in my head. And this was a problem because it was taking up brain energy. And I couldn't relax because I was just thinking about all of the things that I hadn't done. It felt somewhere in between feeling lazy that I hadn't completed them and overwhelmed that I couldn't. So I was going to bed exhausted, but wired. Sound great? It felt it. And if you can relate to this feeling, that's because I know there are a bunch of you out there experiencing the same thing. How do I know? Well, like all things I like to talk about, it's a phenomenon. And there are a couple of ways to hack this phenomenon. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll remember some of them and you can try them out tonight when your head hits the pillow and you start going into overwhelm again. See, there's a couple of things going on here at the moment. A lot of you might be familiar with dopamine. If you need a refresher, because you're like me and information goes in one ear and out the other, dopamine is known as the feel-good hormone. However, that can sometimes mean it gets confused with just feeling good. And that's not actually very accurate. People get dopamine surges in pursuit of a reward. It's a chemical that gets released when you do something that's enjoyable or beneficial towards a goal. It's different to things like oxytocin, which is the love hormone, or serotonin, which can make you feel more emotionally stable and happier and calmer. So dopamine is our reward chemical. It's about anticipation. So if your brain thinks this task is worth starting, that's when dopamine is released. But there's a bit of a problem here where the brain trips up. If a task feels too big or too vague or emotionally loaded, or if it feels tied to like pressure or guilt or judgment, even if you're judging yourself at the end of the day that you didn't get to the task yet, then your brain kind of interprets that as having a low reward. So dopamine stays parked. And without dopamine, our initiation kind of gets stalled. And that's often why something can feel harder before you start it than when you're in it. So say you look at it like, your kitchen at the end of the day, which was me last night. It needed cleaning. I couldn't get around it. I live in Queensland. We have pests and you just can't leave dirty dishes and food out on the bench. So I had no choice but to start it. When I was in it, completing the task felt a lot easier than it felt when I was looking at the kitchen before I started cleaning it. When you've started the task, the dopamine is hitting your system and you feel more incentivized to finish. Now, I did finish cleaning the kitchen, which arguably should have been enough for me to have my head hit the pillow and feel like I had completed some tasks that day and I felt good about it, even though I didn't complete all of the tasks I wanted to do. So here's where I want to introduce our little phenomenon, and that is called the Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik Effect is a cognitive bias where our brain remembers unfinished tasks better than finished ones. Fun, right? It's not because we're disorganized. It's not because we lack discipline. It's because our brains, some more than others, speaking for a friend, are a bit of a control freak. Once a task is completed, the brain files it and moves on, just like I did last night when I had cleaned the kitchen. Once it was done, it was like, next, see you later. But if it's unfinished tasks, the brain keeps it open. Open tabs in the brain, Zeigarnik Effect. Keeps them open mentally, repeatedly, usually at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And the tricky thing is the brain doesn't actually care whether it's a big task or a small one. The unsent email can take up as much brain space as a larger life admin task. That's why we can often just feel busy when we're sitting still. And when we're stuck in this loop, A lot of us can feel like this all the time. It's one of the hardest things of having big mental loads in parenting and work life and just life, is that rest time never really feels like rest time. I don't know about you, but when I sit down, it's near impossible for me to just enjoy whatever I'm doing, watching something, doing a craft, which I was trying to do with my son yesterday. And in my brain, I was like, Anna, you have no reason to stress right now. You can just enjoy this craft. But I couldn't. My brain was like, no, you must stress. And this is the issue with this brain loop, because the problem isn't that you haven't finished everything. The problem is that our brain doesn't know when it's allowed to stop remembering it. It doesn't know when it's allowed to switch off. Because if it lets go of remembering that task, what if it's a really important task and it never remembers it again? So it doesn't know how to let it go. It can't. So you might be sitting here at this point listening to me and going, well, great, I have a laundry list of tasks I haven't finished and my brain has no choice but to just keep the freaking tabs open. But that's okay. That's why I'm here. That's why you're watching this channel, because I have the tricks that can help. I just have to remember to do them myself as well, which I didn't last night. Just lay there stressing at 2 a.m. Okay, here's the shift in practical, doable steps. Number 1, you don't have to finish the task. You just have to contain it. How do you do that? Firstly, write it down somewhere that you trust, whether it's in the Notes app, on your phone, on your computer. If you have a journal or a calendar, write it down somewhere that you trust. Secondly, decide the next tiny step, not the whole task. Because remember, we don't want it to feel overwhelming, because then we're not going to have the dopamine to start. We want our brain to believe that it's something that's achievable and something worth starting. So say it's my whole big kitchen that needed cleaning at the end of the day yesterday. The step that I could assign for myself is to clear the sink. And not even to do all of the dishes, but just to get the dishes out of the sink and onto the table, to clear the sink and have a clear, clean sink to start whatever I need to with cleaning the dishes or whatever's next. That's a very small, achievable task. And if you're anything like me and you're thinking about it right now, you can probably anticipate that when you're in that step and you've cleaned out the sink, you're already there and you're like, okay, I can do the next bit here now. So write it down somewhere you trust, decide the next tiny step, and then tell your brain when you're going to come back to it. So say it's me lying down last night and the kitchen is the task and it wasn't something that I needed to complete last night. I would say, okay, after I've had my breakfast and more importantly, my coffee at say 7:30 a.m., I'm going to empty the sink out. Those 3 steps, that gives your brain closure without completion. It can rest just for a little while. And so it stands down. It's like, okay, you got me. I can rest until 7:30. If your brain won't switch off, don't ask it to relax. It's not going to listen to you. Ask it to stand down temporarily. To do that, you got to give it closure. What I need you to know here is that this isn't a you problem. If you're feeling overwhelmed or frustrated that you're not getting tasks done and it's all you can think about, this is a cognitive bias. It's a thing that your brain does that is somewhat outside of your control, especially if you're unaware of it. But there's ways to give our brain relief without asking more effort from it. And there's ways to work with our brain rather than trying to dominate it, which frankly never works anyway. So the Zeigarnik Effect happens when an unfinished task stays active in your brain, and that creates a lot of mental noise. You need dopamine to start the task, so your brain needs a dopamine safe entry point. You don't need motivation, you don't need discipline, you don't need a personality transplant. Well, maybe some of you do need a personality. I hope you don't. I'm sure you don't. I think you're probably a legend. But what I'm trying to say is that the task needs to feel finite, like finishable. The first step needs to feel non-threatening, and the brain has to believe that there's a quick win coming. So like, let's say instead of like that you need to finish a report, maybe it can be that you just need to open the document and write one ugly sentence. Your brain also hates ambiguity, so clarity lowers the dopamine threshold. Stop aiming for completion. Completion is too far away to trigger dopamine sometimes. Initiation happens when the brain sees momentum. Remember when we're in the kitchen and we're cleaning, we're already there, and it's okay for us to like clean the dishes that are there that we didn't want to clean 5 minutes ago when the sink wasn't empty. So the takeaway here is that if we can't start it, don't push harder. Just make the starting line a bit closer. And the trick for me is to try and remember this as well. I can't expect you, my beautiful viewer, listener, audience, friend, pal, confidant, to do what I'm asking you to try unless I'm willing to try it as well. So my promise to you, is that tonight, before I go to bed, I'm gonna make sure I have a pen and paper on my bedside table, and when my head hits the pillow, if I start remembering things I haven't done and stressing about them, the first thing I'm gonna do is roll over, pick up that pen, write it down on the piece of paper. If it's too big a task, I'm gonna break it down into a smaller achievable step, and I'm gonna give myself a time that I realistically can get to it. That's my promise to you. Do you promise that you'll do the same? I know the last thing that we need right now is another person in the world out there telling us that we need to start putting pen to paper and journaling or whatever. It just feels like another task. But in this instance, if we have it on hand next to us for easy access when we need to do it, then you're just gonna have to trust me that having the pen and paper there and writing it down when the Zeigarnik Effect starts kicking in and we start stressing about our unfinished tasks, it's gonna help you rather than be a hindrance. To have the pen and paper ready to go, to write it down and get it out of your brain so that you can give yourself just the little bit of rest that you deserve. You deserve it. You deserve the rest. You need to rest. You need to feel good about life. Are we on the same page? I feel like we're on the same page. Anyway, let me know how it goes. No pressure, no pressure. We're all about feeling better about doing less around here rather than making ourselves do more. The last thing we need is one more task on the mental load list. Let's just try and get through the day being proud that we made Play-Doh rather than not proud that we got it all over our hands. On a side note, if you have any tips about things that I can do that are not Play-Doh related to entertain my children during the last of the school holidays, please hit me up. Throw them at me. I need as much advice as I can get. And if you like these styles of chats, oh, thank you so much, by the way, for still being here at the end. It's pretty much the kindest thing that you can do for me. If you have anything else that you can add to this conversation, please write it in the comments below. There's probably a load that I have either left out or not explained the best way that I could because my brain's still a little bit fried and I'm trying to get this in before the kids wake up. I'll link some resources down below so that you can soak up any information that you want to about it, both dopamine and the Zeigarnik Effect, and breaking down tasks into smaller tasks. And let me know if there's anything that you want me to chat about. Until the next one, be kind to yourselves and each other. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.